This suggests children are a precious gift from God to be valued and cared for.
In the United States, a child a minute is taken into DHS, CPS, and so on custody. The reality is their picks are already selected, you just don't know it. Being perfect no longer matters. It's what the adopting families are looking for.
Who is it stealing the children, you ask?
From caseworker to the White House, the buck stops at all levels, just not where it is supposed to be. The services your family needs, we the people have paid for to ensure your reunification. Title 4 says, reunify at all costs. United, we stand means nothing to us when it comes to family values. Children are being ripped away from their families. Parents are reverting to addictive behaviors to cover the pain. The trauma caused by child removal is just being recognized, and the results are atrocious. Termination of parental rights is not healthy for anyone, just profitable for the people enforcing the lie.
It's time Washington listens to the cries of our children, the wails of their mothers, and the rage growing in the fathers. These are our children. Keep your damn hands off them. We are coming to act on the behalf of the children God gave us to protect, and you kidnapped.
In the United States, CPS makes upwards of $3 billion per day on trafficking and selling our children. The corruption may start with the caseworker, but goes through the judicial system, passing the governor through the Senate and into the White House. The entire system has a hand in the business known as CPS.
Our children are stolen every minute of a 24-hour day. They are being robbed of their innocence, their trust, their happiness. As parents, we are isolated and betrayed by a government we trust. States are balancing budgets on kids' lives. Only 12% of the kids taken will be reunified. Title 4 funding is being riveted with fraud.
We need to stop CPS and abolish CPS.com is leading the way. Join us.
All right, everybody. Welcome to CPS Victims Hunting Justice. This is Friday evening. I want to welcome everybody to here. Like, share, spread the word, do whatever you can do. Chat with us right here, whatever you can do there. Comment, make a question, have a question, ask a question, whatever you got to do. We'd appreciate that if you do that. I want to start this I got this today. I want you all to hear this. It says, recent research has used synthetic cohort life tables to show that having Child Protective Services investigation, experiencing confirmed maltreatment, and being placed in foster care are more common for American children than would be expected based on daily or annual rates for these events. In this article, we extend this literature by using synthetic cohort life tables and data from the adoption and foster care analysis and reporting system to generate the first cumulative prevalence estimates of termination of parental rights. The results provide support for termination of parental rights by age 18. Second, the risk of experiencing this event is highest in the first few years of life. Third, risks are higher for Native American and African American children. Nearly 3% of Native American children and around 1.5% of African American children will ever experience this event. Finally, there is a dramatic variation across the states in the findings, suggests that parental rights termination, which involves a permanent loss of access to children for parents, is far more common than often thought. So, that being said, I'm going to bring out Vinny. I'm going to bring out Herbert here. Guys.
Hi.
What do you think of that?
That's some powerful stuff right there.
Yeah, that's some real deal stuff right there, right? Like that's that kind of hits the nail home. You know, this once quiet and sought after, like we don't want to talk about this, keep it behind closed doors, is becoming mainstream now. So that means that it's all right to turn it up a little bit, right?
Actually, yeah, seeing how I was reading an article today that my friend Crystal posted, and it stated that we are the worst in the nation when it comes to CPS.
Yeah,
the worst.
What does other nations do?
Just in the U.S., we are the worst state in the whole U.S.
Oh, you're saying the state of Maine?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we established that. We established we're the worst. Maine is the worst in the United States. But when you said the nation, I was thinking you were saying the United States is the worst nation of other nations as far as this stuff.
Right.
Is that true?
That too.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. But I'm saying, is that also the case?
I wonder if it is.
That's according to the Amma Budman's office.
Wait,
but he's saying like in the whole world, how does the United States land in as far as that work?
I don't know. I'd have to look up that statistic to see, the full on all of us what it would be, because I hear that UK is just as bad.
Right. So look it up so you have factual information rather than hearsay.
No, this is off the news. The news channel posted this.
No, I'm talking about nation. I'm talking about in comparison to other countries.
Ranks. Let's see. Where does the U.S. rank in child welfare?
Hold on.
Okay.
I can.
So we got, it says Norway. So where does the child, so we rank 1, 2, 3, 4th. But what do these mean? So Norway is, let me look at what these numbers are here. But while I'm looking at this, let's bring out our special guest, Gail, here. Herbert, you want to introduce her? You know a little bit about her. I like your introduction of her.
Okay, this is Gail that you're going to bring out. She's from New York. Gail is a occupational therapist. Her job is to help people get back into the workforce, or help children with motor skills and related stuff. And she does work with Child Protective Services, meaning workers, like social workers and stuff. So she has some what's the word I would say, arm to arm working with them. She's not a social worker, she's not a caseworker, but she does work along with them from time to time. So she has a little experience with them.
And dealing with caseworkers, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gail,
and good evening, everyone.
All right, thanks for coming back, Gail. This is great. Gail Fridays. Gail, did you hear what I just read? Were you able to hear that?
I did.
How does that what does that ring in your head? Are the people in the United States this bad? Are they this bad of parents, or are they out of control with how they're coming after kids?
Well, I think it can be somewhat of a mixture of, at times, of both. I think I had mentioned, excuse me, last week that um, CPS workers that I know, do not get perks or do not enjoy taking kids out of the house. They actually are trained to keep them in the house at all costs. But we also have a different time where parents at this time have so much going on, just in terms of survival, just in terms of their own personal self-image. Inflation is up. Parents are
Mm-hmm.
trying to survive and work, and many times they're not giving their children what they need in terms of guidance and direction, and the support system's not there like it used to be, more so in terms of extended communities. So I think that causes sometimes, parents, coping mechanisms to be challenged, and depending on how far that goes for them, sometimes children can pay for that. And it's not because a parent wants to be a bad parent, or a parent sits there and says, I want to be abusive, or I want to neglect my child. But sometimes that's one of the reasons mental health became such a big issue in this country, because honestly, a lot of parents really do want mental health assistance, and they're not given what they need.
Now, don't you think that with the amount of money that the Title IV-E puts in all these increases for mental health, for substance abuse, for all of these things, but like you're saying, these resources are not available for these people? I mean, that must just break you up inside, knowing how much money is available, but what is consuming this money?
It's a lot of times that can actually be even a state thing, where whatever they think is essential or important, that's where politicians funnel the money, which is one of the reasons I was recommending last week that, start writing those folks and telling them, we need a support to this, especially hearing that Maine has the highest rate of children being taken out of the home by CPS workers. That's something that needs to be addressed collectively. And if folks in Maine, and remember, we talked about it being an election year, so this election year you can really impact in terms of getting resources and saying, this is not acceptable. We need resources to help us as parents. We need resources to help our kids, and we need resources for a system that's more effective, and how it operates for the betterment of families, not just for the kids alone, because when parents are better, they're better for their children. So you want that whole system to be functional and work. Yeah.
Do you find, because this is where it will touch on what you do for work, what about aftercare for these kids and these families that have been ravaged through the CPS system? And if they're fortunate enough to be reunified, what about aftercare for these people? Because a lot of damage is done by this separation, by all of this. Do you see any flow of that coming in your direction, or any parents or any children or anything?
I do for some, but not for all. So that's been a challenge that I've seen personally, because remember, the whole point of a caseworker and a CPS worker is to provide resources, and those resources are to help the parent in a situation that is difficult, during that time. So if the CPS worker is able to provide those resources, many times that child will be able to stay in the home, and they'll be able to work out those challenges and difficulties that the family unit is going through. But I think that's what is one of the greatest challenges. And I have seen where sometimes CPS workers make referrals and make a suggestion to the parent to help them, and then when the parent seeks out the referral, they're overwhelmed, they're tapped out, and the parents not able to get access. You know, and that
Yeah,
may be because of volume. It may be because they don't have enough workers. There's so many reasons that happens.
right.
But yeah.
I mean, we're seeing that lack of worker quality all across the United States right now. You know, like you can get a fair shake that everybody since COVID has gotten, you know, like a work ethic that is diminished. I mean, I'm seeing jobs of people at convenience stores that they're offering $35 and $40 an hour to run third shift. You know, so I'm not sure what happened after the COVID, but I don't know if it's a lack of people working, or is it this? This was a thought I had. How many people during COVID and all of this? See, there seems to be like a big time push in 2020 to 2022. There's a big influx of kids being taken from the home. Reunification numbers were down to 12%. All of these things. Is it because possibly that millions of people had their kids taken and now they've landed depressed, they've landed isolated, they've landed out of sorts? And maybe that this is why you take a couple million people out of a workforce, you're going to notice those numbers.
Oh, absolutely. And also, if people are taken out of the workforce and they can't provide for their families, their stress levels are at an all-time high. And because of those stress levels, they may not be reacting. There's nothing worse for, I guess I would think, for a parent that cares, because not all do, but the ones that do care, wanting to provide for their family and they can't. And psychologically, that's devastating. And you know that if they're unable to get work, and that's what happened with COVID for a lot of people. Some of them got sick and were unable to work because they were ill. And then by the time they got better, even though jobs legally weren't supposed to terminate people during that time, some did. You know, and it depended on what state you live in. Your southern states are right to work states. They can terminate you for any reason they want to, without cause or effect. The only thing they can't terminate you for is discrimination, and it's extremely hard to prove that.
Right.
You know, so and people were getting terminated. You know, people were also working from home. I know a lot of therapists. I wasn't in a job at that time where I had to do virtual with my clients. I was in a nursing home at the time. So I went to work every day in the midst of COVID. But for the therapists I know during that particular time that were working with children, parents were frazzled because they were on a virtual call and the parents were being put in a position to do therapy. And parents didn't feel adequate enough. And if you have a hyperactive child and your therapist is on a screen telling you do this, do that, and that child is behaving a certain way, you know, that could take a parent over the edge.
Right. And that almost seems like it could be a possible setup for failure too. You know,
well, it did set a lot of kids back. I could tell you that much. Academically as well as emotionally. I mean, there were so many. COVID did so much to so many people, and children got affected. I mean, look at what happened academically to children.
Right. I
mean,
you have
they
children
really got behind, you know, in
right,
terms
because
of
you have
reading
children.
math.
You have children that were using computers that their parents had no idea of. So you had the younger ones teaching the older ones. There was no room. Like it was almost like the level of education. It was like they kept it hand in hand with the generations until this happened. Now it's like, you know, like here, you to get on Instagram and all of this stuff, and you're like, what are you talking about? I'm still in Commodore 64 language, you know?
Hey, take it a step further. For some of our really economically deprived families, they didn't even have a computer.
Right.
Right. So they even lost out on that.
Actually, I had a question for Gail. I put it up on the screen. She said, can I ask a question? Why is it higher chances that the court terminate rights to children under 2? I understand the facts that it better younger because they can't remember it, but why terminate at all?
So now I need a little clarification about the question. So it says, why is it a higher chance that the courts terminate rights to children under 2?
Yeah,
I understand the fact that it is better younger because they can't remember it, but why terminate at all? So what exactly is the person asking the question saying in terms of those rights? Because a child at 2 can't make a decision as to whether, or take it a step further, it's hard for them to even give an adequate story about what's going on behind closed doors. Because I know older children, you know, a judge, and we're going to take CPS out of this equation on that point. There's usually a court case before a child gets taken out of the household. And at that court case, there's usually, Herb, you may know the name of the person. It's a child. It's a lawyer specifically for the child.
The guardian ad litem.
Yes, the guardian. Thank you. And the guardian will usually take the child outside of the parent, outside of the lawyers, outside of any influences, and we'll discuss with the child if the child is old enough, what is going on? What's going on behind those closed doors? You know, and do you feel you need to, you know, leave this household? What's going on? But a child under 2 can't do that. You know, they don't articulate that kind of information. Most of the time, if a child under 2 is taken out, there's some evidence of either physical abuse, whether it's broken bones or bruises, or the child was left in the house by themselves. And we know a child at 2 years old cannot take care of themselves adequately. But there has to be proof of it.
There has to be a story circling all that also. I mean,
correct.
The abuse you're talking about could also be mental abuse that's reported by somebody. And
correct.
Like you said, the child can't articulate that.
Right.
But obviously somebody saw something dealing with the parents, reported it, and that's when they felt the parents shouldn't be with that child.
Correct.
In other words, the child is at harm being around the parents.
Correct. The only time that I've seen, and this I have heard of, I haven't seen it directly, but sometimes when couples are getting divorced, unfairly, one parent will accuse another parent because they want full custody, and blatantly lie. And I've heard of people tell me that storyline. I think it's a horrible thing to use a child in that way, but I have heard that, and I've heard that more than once. You know, but again, the child can't back that one up and say, no, mommy or daddy, you know, even if you ask a child at 2 years old, did mommy or daddy do something? A lot of times they're very inconsistent in their answers. They may say yes one minute and the next minute say no, because they don't really understand the question to begin with half the time. And that I've seen more so because of couples, though, more than a CPS worker or a lawyer, you know. And if they have other people to back them in that storyline, usually they'll lose the child. Yeah, but when it comes to the rights of a child, I would need more clarification as to, I think it's Ashley that's asking what she means by those rights.
Well, I think that you just answered it pretty right. Like, it's probably pretty cut and dry, because the GAL comes in, they do an investigation, they determine what's going on, and it's that. There's no bickering, there's no nothing, because they make it up themselves. Like you just said, the baby can't speak, so that person that's speaking for the baby is just inheriting what's being told, and it's probably a quicker thing. And then we also know on the other side of things is that it's much better to adopt out a baby that's 2 or under for a new family than it is to get an older kid. They get to make that baby themselves. That baby is going to learn their traits. It's going to learn their things. So it's a lot more adoptable than, you know, let's say a 4-year-old kid that's been in the system for 2 years.
Correct.
You know, that is damaged and everything. These babies are, I mean, they're not damaged goods. They're new, fresh babies that are going to be able to fall into suit with their family. I mean, that's pretty much the real reason. I'm going to go ahead and
you're implying in that same situation with the 2-year-old, make that 2-year-old a 10-year-old. So you're saying they probably will not take the 10-year-old out of the family, Darren?
I'm saying that it's going to be harder for a 10-year-old to find a home. And it's going to be a longer fight. Right, yes. It will be more difficult to take the 10-year-old. Yes, absolutely. Because now the 10-year-old has a voice.
So
they're going to be saying,
they'll take a 1-year-old, 2-year-old out of the house quicker than they'll take a 10-year-old. That's what you're saying?
Correct. Yes.
Even though the abuse is still the same.
Right. But you don't know what the abuse is, so it's a danger to them to say, we can't keep this baby in the home because, one, babies are fragile, right? Two, they can't talk, you know, and I think that's it. So they have to just take these babies right away. That's their mindset. I'm not saying that that's what should happen by any means, but I'm saying it's their mindset that it's easy for them to grab a baby because there's imminent danger. You know, like,
so the mindset that you're referring to is the judge's mindset.
Anybody would say that a baby can't defend themselves.
Judge, that's the mindset you're referring to?
I'm just saying in general, I think. That's CPS's mindset. That's the judge's mindset. That's everybody's mindset. Because nobody wants to be responsible for a dead kid. That's the elephant in the room with this whole thing.
Well, I know here and this. Go on.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't know if you all remember, but there's been a couple of cases here where it's not even just about being responsible for the dead kid or child or baby, but they go to jail. We've had CPS workers, because they did not address cases that there was evidence of abuse and the child did transition or pass away. They started making them accountable and actually putting them in jail.
That's good.
So it wasn't as simple as them even just losing their job for not doing a good job. They actually went to jail, right?
Yep.
You know,
Well, that's good,
yeah.
and that's what needs to. There needs to be a uniform for that. You know, like it can't not be there. They've been hiding behind this, you know, the immunity for so long that it's like they run the Wild West. They could do whatever they want. You know, like there's no penalties for them messing up. I mean, even to the point that in a lot of these states now, these caseworkers are rubber stamping these judges' orders. The judges literally are like, if you guys think that baby needs to go, here's a stamp with my name on it, stamp those papers. They don't even have to go in front of a judge. It's already done. You know, the judge has given them that permission to just stamp it and go. I mean, so without, and I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican. Well, I'm more Republican, but as far as the nation, the federal, and then the states' rights, I believe that this is one of those positions that the states need to be in line with a federal code to like make everybody responsible for these things. It can't be one state's way and then not the others when you're coming to these kids dying. You know, there needs to be one rule mandated all the way down to who's responsible for it and why.
I agree, but remember that we're talking, and I guess that's where we have to get clarity here, because the premise of this show is that CPS workers get perks for taking kids out of the home, not for leaving them in the home and not being made accountable. So that's where the concern is. It's like Ashley did respond saying that this was a newborn that was taken from the hospital. I don't know what the scenario of the case was as to why the newborn was taken, but she's saying that after the parents did all their due diligence with classes, testing, and all the other variables, that the child still, I'm assuming, wasn't allowed back in the home.
Right.
Even though the parents did everything that they were supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, these situations in where that Chevron case will come into play, because before what they were able to do, the judges and everything, they would say, okay, you know, Mrs. So-and-so, you did everything you were supposed to, but the department, it's against the discretion of the department to have your baby returned. So I'm going to have to go with what the department says, and we're not going to return this baby to you. Now, what they can't do in these district courts is rely and base their decisions on what these agencies are saying. They can't do that anymore. So now the judge has to rule on this case, or any case if it was like this, that where before they could rely on the agency's recommendation opposed to their own constitutional or any sort of argument that they had. Now they have to rely on their own things. So I think you're going to see things change up a little bit in the courts, but I don't know if you really are, because these judges don't, you know, they have their hands in the cookie jar too. So but that's this instance here is where that, you know, like they're not going to be able to say any longer, because if you go into the courtroom and say, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, it all says it right here, plain and simple, now give me my kid back, and they'd say, well, the department thinks, and then they could hide that. They can't do that anymore. because of that Chevron case being overturned.
Hmm.
So that's going to help. It should help a lot of things out. Now, whether it does or not, who knows?
Mhm.
But I know that's, again, that's where that baby thing comes into play. Yeah, they come in, they take the babies, they can't speak, they can't, like they're going to say the mom was on drugs, so they took the baby. The one thing that you don't do to an addict is break up their support system. But that's the first thing that CPS does to you when they say that you have a substance abuse problem, is they break apart your support unit. Like they isolate you from your family, they take your kid away, they make you leave your wife or your wife leave you. They do the absolute opposite of everything that you're supposed to do for an addict when they come into these recovery situations. And I can't believe that's
So let me ask you, only because of a video I saw, and I think you saw it too, Darren, where this lady was leaving the hospital with her child, newborn, and the police came, CPS came, and they took the baby.
Yeah.
She was on drugs. She was on drugs. In a case like that, you're saying that they shouldn't take the baby. They should let mom go home with the baby.
Well, I think that they should, and I think there should be an opportunity because number one, they're destroying a huge bond that baby needs to have with its mother. So in all honesty, it's almost like they do this as a sin, because they take those babies and they don't allow the baby to actually bond with its mother. So they miss that bonding experience with a parent. That does something mentally to a child as well. So this parent, if they don't get that initial bonding with the mother and a child, they'll never get that. So they take these babies away from them and they don't allow them to get that bonding thing. They use that against them in court. So yeah, I do believe that the mothers should be home with their babies. They should be monitored by drug tests or supervised by someone. But who knows? 93% of the drug addicts in this country, you don't even know who they are, because they're working, they're functioning drug addicts. Now they might not just
they know once the mom gives that baby, they know from the time mom goes for the baby, they do testing, urine and everything else, that the mom's on drugs. So Gail, let me ask you this question.
Those babies pay for the parent if the mother in particular is on drugs throughout that pregnancy. One of the reasons I'm working with those children is because of that. I've seen crack babies, and it's a heck of a thing to watch. Those babies are shaking at 3 weeks old because they're going through withdrawal symptoms because their parent took drugs while she was pregnant. And it causes damage. It can cause brain damage.
Okay, so what Darren's saying, though, even though that may be the case, what idea do you have that we could avoid CPS from taking the child from the mom, leaving the child bonding with the mom, even though mom's a crackhead and the baby's a crackhead, but leave them together? What can we do with mom and baby?
The only thing that I've seen that is halfway workable is if you've got a very strong family support system. And most of the time when people have gotten caught up on crack in particular, certain drugs are very hard for families to deal with. But if they can, that they live in the household with an adult that isn't on drugs, that monitors them and makes sure that the circumstances for that baby are safe.
Okay. So then when the baby's taken, there's a very good possibility that that the woman doesn't have a strong support system. And that's why CPS takes the baby.
Correct.
Right, but what we're also finding out are these foster homes aren't vetted properly, and they are giving babies to crack houses and things like that. Like those are statistics are showing that, because they don't have places for these police. They don't have time to vet properly. They're removing more kids than they have places for them to go. And there needs to be something said for that, because statistics and studies show that even if you're literally getting the shit beat out of you in your home by your parents, there's still more damage done to you by removing you than to leave you in that situation. And that's from all kinds of studies that are being done. Because you're ripping apart a familial bond that God really gave you the right to recreate.
Now, are you saying this for young babies, or are you just saying this for children across the board?
I'm saying it's just for children, but for any baby.
Now, Darren, remember I shared my story, and I have to admit with you, I could never be on board with that. I wanted to die in my household, and I would have found a way to make it happen if I had not been taken out of that household.
Right, and you're one of those ones that fell through, and that sucks. because that's this.
No, but I'm just saying, I was in the household. I was in a household, with that parent, and
Right.
that bonding thing was so not there for me.
Right.
I remember the feelings I had, and I'm much, much older, but I will never forget how I felt as a kid. And what actually helped me keep a semblance of sanity as a kid was that there were a couple of adults who knew what was going on behind closed doors, and they were actually, trying to be supportive and love me through it. But I can tell you, depending on the circumstances for kids,
Yeah.
that bonding thing is not realistic. When you got a parent that's constantly hurting you or abusing you,
Right.
you're not sitting there as a kid saying, well, you know what, maybe, it could be worse if I left. At that
Right.
time, you feel it's the worst thing in the world.
Right. And I agree with you on that too. I mean, I'm just going by what these things say. I'm not going by what my belief is. Because I find it, like, if you're in a suck situation that's very bad, I find it really hard to believe that if you're taking from that, you're going to still have a problem with it. But however, what about if you dial back the abuse level a little bit? What if you dial it back to the point that your mom is just telling you you're fat, or you're, like, it's just a vocal thing that they're putting you down? Is that, I guess this is where we get into this, and this is something that
you're talking about the severity of what goes on.
Right.
And,
so
right. And I see your point is valid on that. If it's not if it is a parent that insults you a lot,
right.
That may break down your self-esteem, and well, it could be destructive to your psyche as well, but it may not be the cause to now put you in another environment that may actually be worse.
Right.
So that part I get, but for a lot of the kids that are actually taken out of the home, before interventions are put in place, it's usually because there's a component of severity to it.
Right. I mean, like, I don't like to talk about, like, our personal cases or anything that much, but for instance, with my case, it had nothing to do with my child at all. Not one iota of anything had to do with my child, and they still took her. There was no imminent danger to her. There was no nothing to her, and they still took her. And like, I can't imagine what she must think. Like, nothing was wrong. She didn't see anything that was wrong. She wasn't abused. She wasn't yelled at. She wasn't nothing. But she was taken, and not ever been able to say bye to her. No, nothing. So what must she think? Like, she was 3 years old, almost 4. That wasn't, and just to be removed from home. That's what's happening more than not. Because what we see by statistics, again, I hate to keep saying that, but what we see is these kids that are really in harm, and you are a prime example. The people that need it aren't getting it. They're not getting the help that they need. Like, people like you got crying out. And, we have, I don't remember, and I'm sorry if I don't remember who it was, but I know that we had someone on here that for years was trying to get help to get out of their home. And they went right by them. Like it was nothing. I forget what the number of phone calls were, like 70 phone calls or something like that. And that's the other thing, is that we're seeing when these kids that are dying in their care or in their custody or not, or whatever, they have multiple phone calls. And no one is taking control of these numbers, or these families that really are needing it. Why is that? Why is
well,
it?
I will say this much. I don't know if you've just read what Carrie said, but I'm in 100% agreement with what she says. And she says here that parents that don't know how to parent can learn to parent.
Right.
And that kids see that you are never too old to learn and change for the better. And she's correct about that. And that is something that a caseworker and a CPS worker should be helping a parent with. Right. And that's why even when we were discussing parents with drug issues, the goal is supposed to be to help, a parent if they want, because not all parents are of that mindset. But if they want to get help and go into rehab, they're supposed to set that child up in a safe environment while the parent gets rehab, unless, depending on what the drug is, that the parent can stay home and go to rehab maybe during the day and then come home and still parent the child under, sort of supervision. But yeah.
I mean, basically, this whole conundrum, this is why I support abolishing CPS, and then starting over with something that just comes right in behind it, that we build from the ground up instead of from the top down. Like, let's let the communities figure out what we have to do for the children, because no one at a federal level is going to know the neighborhood like, you know, someone from your town. So if you started this in reverse and started the towns building up these support networks, then we can move to the city, to the state, and then to the federal, and then all these states would know. Right now, all they know is that there's an abundance of money coming in. No one's doing their jobs. Everything's erratic everywhere. No one knows what definitions are. You know, like there's nothing laid out that's of any sort of consistency or any sort of regulatory, really. I mean, it's all based on discretion. So discretion is lined in who it is and who says it and who does it. I mean, that's who the hell knows whose discretion you're following, you know? I mean, I could go get a job too, just down the street, and it could be at my discretion to be a caseworker. Well, who the hell knows what I'm thinking? What's my discretion? You know, like, what am I thinking that's okay, what's not? You know, like, and I doubt that they vet that much, that there's a questionnaire that says, oh, how do you feel about this? What about this situation? And really, I mean, this is the number one protection services of our futures as these people. And I don't think that the job title or the job itself is taken seriously. That's my opinion.
Darren, if you were to develop the new CPS, how would you develop it?
Well, that's why I just was stating there. I would start with each town, or each town would form a committee that was responsible for the resources and whatnot that were handed down to them by some sort of temporary funding by the federal government. Let these townspeople come together, and then let the towns unite into the city or to the county, and then let the county unite to the state, and let the states come together, and then form this all together, and then maybe form a federal regulatory system for it. Again, I don't believe in the federal government running everything, but I think in a situation like this, it's not fair if you yell at your kid in Maine and then move to Vermont and you yell at your kid there, they're going to come take your kid. I mean, we can't allow these things to happen. This is something
what should the new system do in a situation of an abusive child? What should the new system do?
Well, this new system should do. Title IV funding is made exactly the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to fund these things to help these children. It's the same thing. You need to assess the situation, and this needs to be done by people of your own community, I believe. People that really do have a hand in your community, because I think it's going to be more difficult to remove a child if you know that's Joe Blow's daughter, or Ed's son, or this or that. You know what I mean? There's going to be more at stake, and a community will want to fix itself. So take the community.
So in Gail's case, if she had your system in her case, they would feel, oh, no, we shouldn't remove Gail from her mother and blah, blah, blah. Gail would have been dead.
Well, Gail's situation kind of worked the way I just said. She just said that there was a couple of adults that knew what the situation was, and they were trying to provide support for her in her situation. This is what I'm saying. If there was more people.
But no, in Gail's situation, the CPS took her out.
That's what she wanted.
Right.
See, what I'm trying to say is, your community situation to try to keep that child into the home.
I didn't say that's what was going to happen. What I said is, let the people of the community make these decisions for. Let them come up.
So the community made the decision. That kid needs to leave that house.
Then they have to go.
Okay.
I'm not saying that there aren't kids that need to be taken out of a house. I'm not saying that at all. There's absolutely a situation where kids need to be removed. But they don't need to be removed the way that they are and put in the places that they're put.
Okay. In a situation like yours, where your daughter wasn't abused or anything like that, it had to do with whatever you did. So why are you taking my daughter out of the house?
Exactly.
I get it.
And I think that's why they don't allow juries at these. First, their argument is it would jam up the courts too much, but I don't think that you're going to get a jury of your peers to come and tell you that you can't be a parent. I think that's why they don't allow them. That's my opinion, and I don't have any proof on that other than humanity itself. But it's a damn hard thing to look a person in the face that's crying, and they're going to sit there and you're taking away their heart and soul, whether they beat you or not. They still love you as a parent, because that's a part of them. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. Again, I'm not advocating for any of that stuff, but it's still hard, and it's still hard to look at that person and say, do I want, they compare this to the death penalty. Well, if the death penalty is just like this, why do we only get one shot as a parent of getting our children back once they take them? Why do we only get that one trial and that's it? Because people sit on death row for how many years before they get put to death? how many appeals, how many, all of this stuff. And all the while you're losing your bond of your child because your kid is just staying away. They're keeping the kid away from you.
Well,
You know, like this-
Gail is not the caseworker. But once she gets us some caseworkers, you
Yeah.
can present those
Yeah.
arguments
Yeah, we're
to
just
them.
having an overall discussion.
And I'm working on getting that for you all because you know, I know that before a caseworker can take a child, can even come to your house, they have to get a court order.
Right.
A valid point that you made earlier about is do the judge look at the information even before a CPS worker can take a drug test? They for a court order. So I would like to hear the CPS worker as well give me the how they go about court. What
Are you moving around, Gail? Because you're coming in choppy.
Oh, no, we lost Gail.
Gail?
I really wanted to hear that question too. She'll call
She
back.
must have been moving around. She must have moved from her location because she
Here we go. We got her
got
back.
stopped. Yeah.
We got
about
her back.
that?
Nope,
I
that's
think
right.
I pressed too close to my ear.
Oh.
Yeah, so if you could redo your question there, that would be awesome because it was going to be a great question. You wanted to
Yeah.
ask the caseworker, or you would
I
ask
would
them.
like to know, like, what you know, when we get a caseworker on, what is it that helps them to what is the precipitous for them to, for number one, get the court order to either do, and because that, like I said, they have to get a court order even to test a parent with for drug use before they can do that, and before they go to the house. You know, they're mandated. But what is the criteria for that court order to determine why they would take some children out of the house and others they don't?
Right.
Right. And that's what I would, you know, I would love to get the how the system works.
Right.
And I don't know. I'd also like to ask them if it varies from state to state, or is it a pretty much, you know, a basic guideline for all? Because I know social workers, they have to get a bachelor's degree, and then when they want to, if they want to do more in their career, they get a master's.
Right.
And then if they really want to do like a form of therapy, then they'll get their PhD. But and I know a caseworker or a CPS worker has to at least have a bachelor's. That much I do know. And that they're supposed to be trained in human services. So they're supposed to be trained on how to make good choices and decisions and to be a resource for the clients they're working for. Because, you know, not all of them work with kids. Some work with adults, and some work with our older population, our elderly. You know, so it would be, I'm looking forward to getting a caseworker on that can answer those kind of questions. You know, even from an educational standpoint, to be honest, I'd like to know educationally, are they taught, you know, everything? Because I remember I told you, I was told by caseworkers directly, we are trained to keep those kids in the house until we absolutely cannot. They're, you know, it's not supposed to be an easy removal. Like, oh, you know what? That parent had an attitude today, I'm going to take the kid out.
Right.
They're not trained like that. They're trained to absolutely try to keep those kids within their family unit. So there has to be a danger that the caseworker is perceiving in order to take that child out. I know,
Right.
I'll give you an example. If there's a gun in the house and the parent's not locking up the gun, and the kid gets a hold of the gun and shoots it, even though nobody gets hurt. Now, and the parent may have been a good parent, but they didn't keep that gun locked up. And you may
Right.
even know about this, Herb, as a police officer. They will take the child out of the house because that was an imminent danger there, that gun
Right.
was
Yeah.
not locked up. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what, in your opinion, you know, okay, that's the situation that happens, right? There's been this family is, let's say that they're, you know, well off, they're all this stuff, everything's been great. They went hunting or whatever, you know, like this day and age, everybody carries around firearms with them anywhere you go, that's great. I'm glad people do that. But let's say, okay, they put the gun in the house, the kid found the gun, shot the gun, no one gets hurt. CPS comes, takes the kid. Does the kid come home? What happens next to these people?
Now that would be neat.
That's what the caseworker is going to tell us.
Right. That's what the CPS worker, because I can't answer that.
No, I'm saying,
You
like,
do-
to you, in your opinion, Like, would you say that this is a one-time thing and let's monitor these people? I'm just looking for your...
I think that they may take the kid out. Now I don't know, but I would think the rational thing would be to take they would take the kid out, or maybe they won't. Maybe the criteria is, I'll be back next week, but you better have that gun in a lockbox and show me proof that that kid cannot get access to it. Remember the Sandy Hook shootings? The reason that that shooting became so devastating is because that child should have never been able to get a hold of that gun, and they tried to make that parent accountable because but they couldn't. The child had killed the parent. So but I'm just saying, like, there was no way. This child was calling out to help. The very last case, and I don't remember if anybody on this call would remember this case, but it just happened, I think, last year, where a child went to school, shot people. The child was texting the parent. Now, the child wasn't getting abused by the parent, but the child was texting the parent saying, I feel like I'm going crazy. I want to kill everybody, da 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 da. And the parent responds and says, just don't get caught. This is what the parent responds to the child.
Don't get caught? Don't
get caught. And the child goes to school and shoots and kills some kids. I can't remember what state it was in. I'll try to look it up so I can.
Wow, don't get caught.
Do you know that parent went to jail? So the kids didn't go to jail. They made both parents, the mother and the father, accountable. And the father didn't even know that day what was going on, but the father knew about the gun. So the mother got a much longer sentence because she was aware that the kid was going to school. She claims that she just thought the kid was being emotional and she didn't take it seriously. That was her claim in court. I watched the court case. I wish I could think of the name of it.
Is that the one where the kid felt like he was being bullied?
Yes. Yeah.
Michigan?
The kid felt he was being bullied?
Michigan. Mm-hmm.
Jennifer and James Crumbly, the first parents convicted in U.S.
That's right. That's right. So now let's go back to CPS on this case, just potentially, right?
Yeah.
What if CPS had gone in that household before this incident happens? People lose their lives behind this incident, right? And went in and said to the mother, you know what? But nobody reports anything. So no CPS workers going into this household because there's not a conflict between the kid and the parent. It's just the parents aren't taking the kid's emotional state seriously. This kid is in crisis, and this kid tells them that he's in crisis. He tells the school and he tells the parents. Nobody takes it seriously for some odd reason, right? And now other kids, people lost their children behind this. So in this case, it's a question I'm kind of throwing out. I'm not giving an answer. But in this case, if a CPS worker had gone in knowing that this child was in crisis and the parent was very, ambivalent.
About it,
right. Would the accountability have been on the CPS worker for leaving that child in the household? Or should the CPS worker have taken that child out knowing that child was in crisis, saying, you know what, I think I'm either going to kill myself or I feel the strong need to commit homicide? Because he says this. He sends emails and texts to his friends, social media, not emails. He does a social media thing saying, I'm homicidal. Like when I tell you, it hurt my heart because this kid was letting you know with clarity what he was doing and nobody was listening.
Right, and everybody's taking it as a joke.
Correct. He's acting emotional or whatever they're thinking. Right. So
we don't have a crystal ball.
I know. But the reason I presented the question was, in this case, how would a CPS person know? That's my point that I'm saying. Right.
Because there's nobody
presenting to you that it's a hell of a hard job to have. Because you got to try.
And I agree with that. I definitely do agree with that because you know what? Is there any stopping what happened here? Who knows?
Yeah,
probably not. Right. There's probably not. There are situations that are just unstoppable. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not, doesn't matter what you did or what you tried to do. What was the only option of this? I'm reading this thing now. They had no options to stop. I mean, yeah, okay, the mom knew, but like you said, she thought he was just busting on her. Like, oh, mom, like it was like granted, that's not like small talk, but like if that's the relationship you have with your kid and everything, and what would she just think? Like I got to call the cops on my kid. Like that's a tough That's the tough.
That's
tough
a
thing.
very tough call to make, and it would be interesting if we had a CPS worker to discuss this with, because Carrie is even saying here, and she clarified that it was in Wisconsin, that he was drawing homicide pics in class, and he was. So the school, in my mind, is just as accountable as the parent in this case. But if the school had reported it, they may have taken this child out of that household. They may have. And would they have been right, even though it wasn't there was no report of the parents being on drugs or the parents being abusive to the child outside of, they weren't paying the kid any attention.
Right.
It's something to think about. That's why I threw it out there. Yeah.
Students injured and 7 others. Yeah, there's 4 students injured and 7 others in the shooting at Oxford High School in Michigan.
Yep.
Wow.
Was it Michigan, or Carrie said it was somewhere else?
Wisconsin, Carrie said.
Right.
Wisconsin.
I would have to.
We have the same last name, Crumbly. It's the same last name, so it's got to be.
And it has to be Michigan, right? For this
Yeah,
case.
I'm reading it right here.
But it's not the only case either. So
right.
There could have been a case in Wisconsin also.
Yep.
Yep. And there definitely was a case in Connecticut.
This is what the mother said, and this is perfect. This is how you sum it up. She says, as a parent, you spend your whole life trying to protect your child from other dangers. You never would think you have to protect your child from harming somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Very
that's tough.
I got a question for all of you, actually, because this just happened in a case up here in Maine. Because CPS found out this person got a hold of the Katahdin file, they just offered her a deal that she gets her other 2 kids, but the state gets to keep the infant because it's already adopted. So she agreed to that deal. Would you have agreed to that deal or not?
Say it again for me.
Okay, she got a hold of what's called their Katahdin file, which is a AI system that controls CPS as initial phone call. It's not supposed to be used throughout the entire case.
Okay.
But they have been using it for that. And she got proof of that, and she started a preliminary lawsuit against CPS to get her 3 kids. Her one has been really badly abused to the point where you can see his ribs and everything else.
Oh.
He's a nonverbal autistic.
Okay.
And so they offered her a deal knowing that she was going to sue them because she found the evidence against them. And they offered her the plea deal of she gets her son back and the other kid, but the state of Maine gets to keep the daughter that was already in foster placement, the little boy, as theirs. Would you take that deal or would you not take that deal?
I think what is standing out for me is that you're saying one child was being so abused that you could see his ribs
by the foster placement.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. I mean, that's another.
You had a lot of proof.
Right. Check these out here. These numbers, Herbert. Here's about the beginning of the show. We talked about the national ranking of America, of the United States. It says America are less likely to have opportunities to survive and thrive than their peers in countries like Greece, Hungary, Israel, Canada, Spain, Sweden, the UK, and Japan. In fact, America is consistently outperformed on measures of child opportunities and outcomes. Among 36 OECD countries, the United States ranks 9th for reading scores, 26th for enrollment in early childhood programs amongst infants and toddlers, 31st for math scores, 32nd for the percent of children in relative income poverty, 33rd for the number of 1-year-old babies who died before their first birthday. Americans' appalling record on education, health, and poverty reflects our unwillingness to adequately invest in our children, While we rank first for the number of millionaires and billionaires, gross domestic product, and military spending, we rank next to last among industrialized nations for public spending on children and families. We're the only rich nation that does not guarantee paid parental leave, and the only member of the United Nations that has not ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And they won't do that because once they do that, then that will make CPS's job illegal. But we're the only nation out of 36 that won't sign the children's rights thing.
Okay. Now you mentioned about paid parental leave. You talk about leave of absence because a woman, a husband and a wife are going to have a baby. They can't get a leave of absence. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going to guess what the article is meaning, but she said we're the only country that does not guarantee paid parental leave. I know in other countries they've guaranteed their check for like 6 weeks. Like in France, you get
6
like
weeks. Some of them are for 6 months.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah. No, I think that, Gail, tell me if I'm wrong, that hasn't something changed where parents are given the opportunity, if they have maternal leave, that they're paid, or is it they have to take their own leave time?
You're talking about, well, I know that in all the jobs that I've had, it varies between 6 weeks to 13 weeks after the birth of a child that a parent can take off. And now they're even offering that for fathers. So it's not just a mother thing. Fathers are getting time too. But the drawback to that is, first of all, if you're going back to work 6 weeks after a baby is born, that's tough. That's really tough. That's the one thing I would say with laws in this country. I mean, a parent should have a good solid 3 to 6 months to bond with that child and be able to care for that child before they have to go back. But I mean, and that's just a personal opinion of mine. I'm not putting a right or wrong into anyone else's opinion. And part of the reason I say that is because a parent doesn't get much sleep when a baby's first born, and you're trying to work and take care of an infant. And then, sometimes women suffer from, postpartum depression and everything that goes with that, and then lack of sleep and everything else can really affect mental health. So I would love it if this country did take that into account and did provide. I don't know if it's Switzerland or Sweden. One of them, I may be mixing them up, but they actually provide a nanny after a child is born to assist the mother. I think it's for at least a month or something like that. The only thing I know this country does in terms of providing a caretaker is if I think the parent has triplets or quadruplets, then I think this country, and I have, because that was going on years ago, that I don't even know if that's still in place. But I knew someone who had triplets, and the government did provide a caretaker to help her for the first few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely lack the compassion in this country for the family and the family unit and what can be done or what should and could be done. And we definitely are in the world. They all believe in the family. I mean, the family is the core of everything, and somehow in the United States, we've just dropped that. We've forgotten about the family. We've become individuals. We've become socially inept. Obviously, a lot of that happened with the COVID stuff and everything, but it's really disheartening that the family isn't as important as it once was, and they're making us believe that. It's just awful and unfortunate. And if we don't do something to change this sooner than later, it's going to get. I mean, what is it going to be when we're just going to have a country of people that don't care at all, or they're all out for their own individual, purposes? Because it's bad enough that we have this many people. Because I'm not saying that kids don't need to be taken out of homes. This does happen. It does need to. But there's a lot of us that are sitting here crying unfair and that this shouldn't have happened and so on and so forth. But yet we can't get anybody to come out and rally around this stuff. It's very difficult. But why is that? Is it because our values don't look in that direction? I'm not getting why we're having such a problem in this country, getting parents to jump on when there's so many missed up or bad opportunities. I'm not even sure what I'm trying to get at, but you know what I mean. Like they're just something's wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it is or how to put my finger on it. But when you have this many people crying foul and this many hundreds of thousands and no one's listening and paying attention, then there's definitely a problem.
I mean, I will agree with you that I think family values need to get stronger again, but I don't think that that's going to happen through any other means than, well, for instance, we're having conversations right now, you know, and you know, hopefully, collectively, more people will get together and work on those family values. Because I'm laughing about this conversation right now because my grandson, who is 20 years old, we were having this conversation earlier, and he, as a 20-year-old, was saying to me that he felt that family values are deteriorating in terms of what he sees even with his own friends, you know, and them feeling supported, you know, by families and societal. But you know, when you look at half your reality shows that we watch on TV, they're definitely not encouraging family values. That's for sure.
No, they're
Yeah.
promoting the exact opposite, really. I mean, even sexuality is on the chopping block right now. You know, like it went from like an over exaggerated amount of teens having sex to this stuff to genital mutilation. Like, what the hell happened in between the too much sex for teens and then they went the extreme opposite? It's crazy how this thing just flip flops back and forth. I mean, that's obviously
So
I'm
going to add another question to that then. We've been talking a lot about the government, but remember, a lot of us view life through a television. And one of my questions, just think about as well, would be, do you think Hollywood has a great deal to do with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Hollywood controls everything that these kids eat, drink, sleep, you know, like whatever they see on TV. And I don't know, is it Hollywood now or is it the gaming industry? That's the other question. You know, like where are kids? Because this kind of puts me out of touch. I don't know. Are kids watching movies now? Or are they just constantly stuck in gaming? You know, where does this lie? You know, like where does the responsibility go for that? I don't know. I don't know if you do, but I know that whoever's responsible for gaming is definitely responsible for what kids are learning and picking up nowadays. There's no doubt in my opinion.
Do you think that also affects parenting and how it's affecting how our kids are getting into the system and sometimes even...
I do, because I don't think parents no longer look. At least when you had a babysitter before, you would call up the babysitter, check on them. Now they have a computer, so you could leave your kid in your room for days, just put a sandwich in there and a soda. As long as that video game goes, they're fine. You know, and that's not really the right way to say it, but it's just the truth. And I think that's the way parents are looking at it, but they're not monitoring what they're playing on these games. They don't go in and they don't look and be responsible for what's going on in these games. You know, they just know that it's a game. Their kids are out of their hair, and that's it. You know, like put Bobby in there with his computer. His buddy can sleep over. We can go out and have beers on the deck and whatever. But they're not seeing what they do, and they're not going to see it because it's just like we talked about earlier. The difference in the level of like the computers and this and that. No parent's going to walk into their kid's room, turn on that gaming computer, and try to find what they've been doing. We have no idea. And then with the level of protection. So yeah, I do. I think that all of that plays a big role in parenting, how parents view their role and how they accept it. You know, like no longer do you have to entertain your kids. They're entertained for you. So I believe it has made the parents lazy. You know, unless your kids are involved in other activities, you know, sports, extracurricular, all that stuff, then you're not going to know what your kid's doing because they're going to lock themselves in the room. They're going to go do the gaming. So I think, yeah, it's made parents lazy. My opinion. Vinny, what's your thought on that? You're the young generation.
I ain't the young generation. What are you talking about? I'm almost 42 years old.
That's young still, Vinny.
No, I don't feel young.
How do you feel about like, do you think that Hollywood and the gaming and all of that stuff has to play in like what's going on with all of this?
It definitely does. I mean, even with these kids, it was all about their game systems, and they always wanted to segregate themselves to gaming or talking to their friends, and they didn't want to bother even coming out. So yeah, I can kind of see that. That would be a problem because you'd try to say, let me check your stuff, and they would not let you in because they'd have it passworded with 4 different passwords.
Right. Yep.
And then they get angry and they throw stuff or try to threaten to hurt themselves.
Yep. Or they're able to just go to the schools and be able to say, oh, I don't like my parents and this and that, just because their parents took their game away from them. But then here comes CPS. I mean, that's happening a lot more than not too, Gail. You notice that stuff? And then how do you deal with that? That's why I think that this whole system is just ready to be wiped out, because I think there's just too much time. I mean, we're dealing with a fund that comes from a system that's from 1935. There's just too much new. There's too much things that need to be looked at, investigated, and changed so that it is more efficient for everybody to be on board with. But that's my opinion. I'm trying to find you. I did something I told everybody. What's that, Vinny?
What they need to do is bring it back to where it was just DHHS. That's it. When they actually helped families and gave families food and helped these parents with travel and helped them get their car fixed if needed.
Right. Provided
That's
services.
What they need
right.
to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with that 1,000%. Let me see here.
Is from a political standpoint, though, many politicians are saying that those are freeloaders. We don't want to help them. So there's a lot of. I mean, I agree. I think that would be helpful, honestly. But you will find that a lot of folks are saying we don't want those kind of social service programs in place. They're costly, and who pays for that, right?
Right.
And, right. So it's interesting, from that standpoint, because I do agree that would be incredibly helpful to help, parents if they need assistance with food and everything else.
Yeah, that's the way that the community should be moving and operating. That's why I say it's such a big thing for the local communities to get involved, because I think you would see a difference in care and response than you get now with this being the way that it is. I mean, you're getting termination of parental rights is becoming the norm, and how is nobody out there complaining and saying, whoa, we got to stop this? Nobody is. And we're not that isolated of a group that this is like this. You know what I mean? Like, this is not just a us thing.
But the one thing I'll say that may be something to think about is, especially since your numbers in Maine are so high, is maybe you can create some sort of organization where people collectively come together and are supporting parents, and before it even gets to a CPS phase. That's one of the things that churches were supposed to do.
Right.
And even that, I think, is starting to falter. But maybe you can, start get a few good people together and create some sort of organization. Call it something real positive, but parents know that if they're in crisis mode, or they feel like they're getting in crisis mode, that they can get assistance and help from the organization before CPS can even remotely get involved.
Right.
And stop it from going to that level.
Right. That, you know what, that's a great, but I mean, I guess that's what we call education, right? Like that's what we call, but how do you, like that's, you know what, if parents don't realize when they're faltering and they're fumbling and they can't come out and get, ask for help, then that's their own fault. If they don't want to work on it themselves to keep their kids, then they don't deserve to have those kids, really, I guess. I mean, there's a pride level that, that is part of there, but on the same hand, if you know that you're losing control and then you're part of that your kids are part of that, and you don't want to do that, then you don't deserve your kid anyway. So, yeah. Herbert, you got anything with thoughts on any of this, bud?
No, I think we're
right in your alley here.
Very well. I think that to bring some closure to all this, once Gail gets her caseworker friends on for us, then we can ask them those questions.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I like just dealing with Gail also. I mean, this is very,
It's very good that we deal with Gail. Gail doesn't have all the answers. The caseworkers have the answers to your questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Because I'm not a caseworker.
They have the actual answers to all your questions.
The facts, not opinions. Just they'll give you facts. Right.
This is what they do every day.
Yeah. And they may be able to clarify or clear up some of the misinformation out there. And we may find out that some of the stuff we think has some validity and they're trying to work on change it. We don't know, but we won't know until we talk to them. Right.
It's like I'm police. I'm not fire. But at the same token, if somebody, because I work along with fire departments, so if somebody asks me, well, why did they break a hole through the window of the car? Well, the fire hydrant was there. The car was parked there, so they busted a hole through the person's window. I mean, well, couldn't they have gone around? Well, that's their prerogative. They can go through the car if they want to, because it's parked illegally. But I'm not a fireman, but I can tell you from observation of things. Or they can take the fire truck and push the car out of the way, even though it messes up the transmission, but they can push the car out of the way to get to the fire hydrant. But you have to really ask the fireman, well, why do you do that? I can only tell you what I observe of what the fire department does, because they have their policies and procedures.
Right. And even that probably varies from state to state to a greater.
And that varies from state to state.
That's what I'm saying. That for this situation, it should be cut and dry. That this is what you can do, and this is what's not acceptable nationwide for your, for your kid. I
don't know if you can use the word cut and dry, because the situation is not cut and dry. So every situation is going to vary. It's not going to be a cut and dry solution.
Right. That is so true.
Yeah, it's not going to be a cut and dry solution.
All right, so you guys want to hear the song I did?
Cool.
Check this out. Minnie, you're going to like this. Can you hear it? Everybody can hear it?
Yes.
They take away the fathers, leaving just a mom and cubs. They know that with that out the way, the better things will go. Breaking apart the family, destroying the American way. Our legacy is built upon our families of yesterday. Fuck CPS, fuck what they doing. Fuck CPS, they need to be ruined. It's all about the division of family services. You hear that the division is what they about. They prey upon the family, the ones that the dad's been kicked out. We can't stand for this abomination. This is the song that needs to play across our once great nation, making us aware of the problem. Stealing our kids, it's not mama drama. Stand up for those who are lost to them. We need to fight for the family, making America great again. CPS comes along with the mission to protect. The only thing they are doing is cashing in those checks, paid for by the souls of the children. Diagnosed by a caseworker who is still a baby herself. They take away than just a mom and cubs. They know that with dad out the way, the better things will go. Breaking apart the family, destroying the American way. Our legacy is built upon our families of yesterday. Fuck CPS, fuck CPS, fuck what they doing. Fuck CPS, they need to be ruined. It's all about the division of family services. You hear the division, that's what they about. They prey upon the family, the ones that the dad's been kicked out. We can't stand for this abomination. This is the song that needs to play across our once great nation, making us aware of the problem. Stealing our kids, it's not mama drama. Stand up for all those who are lost due to them. We need to fight for the family, making America great again.
Yeah. So what'd you think of that? Minus the F word. I apologize for that. I don't. My wife and I, that's our argument.
I don't have a problem with the F word part. The part I have a problem with is that I'm not hearing. Okay. CPS is following rules, regulations, policies, procedures. Why don't they do a song about changing the system of things, like changing policies and procedures? Because the CPS worker is nothing more than a messenger.
In some cases.
Yeah, but in a lot of cases, they're following a protocol. They're following what they've been trained to do, and it's not personal. It's not well, no, let me take that out. It can be personal if they feel that child is being harmed, but it's not that they're
acting.
I don't like. And when I say not personal, it's not because they sit there and said, today I'm going to take as many kids out of the house as I can because I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, type of thing.
Right.
So it's,
And they have an overseer, which is the judge, that's going to oversee them to do what they're supposed to do. I mean, that song could easily be about the police. Very easily. Screw the police.
It could be about a lot of it. Well, they made one. NWA did that same thing with the police, but
but I'm saying it could be about the police. But what are the police doing? The police are upholding the laws, the rules, the regulations. Change the rules, change the regulations, then the police don't have to do what they got to do.
But in the same the same thing. Like there's bad cops, there's bad caseworkers. There's in every job there is bad cops. But we're talking about the exception to the rules of the bad ones. There's an exception. But overall, police are going to arrest people. Police are going to write tickets. That's overall. Good cops, bad cops, they're all doing that. But people everybody don't want to be given a summons. So I don't screw them. I don't want to give them. They should be giving us summonses. Right. I will not give you the summons if you take it off the books that we cannot write you a summons. I'm fine with that. Well, that's the thing. That's already there, and they are removing children. It already says remove children at last cost, at all costs. Do not remove the children. Keep them in their homes. And they emphatically are just able to go in there under the guidelines of imminent danger or under their own.
Right. And again, that will be addressed with the caseworker.
Well, as long as there's open-ended definitions of words like imminent danger, best interest, things like that, this is never going to be solved. This is up to a person's discretion. Discretion's in there. See, that's why I'm saying it needs to be one solid, unified. These are what these definitions are. These are the situations that need to be going on and upheld in these decisions. Like you can't just take a kid out of a house because the light switch didn't work. Like when life happens to people, like you can't just remove a child for that. You can't do that.
No, you can't. But at the same token, the caseworker can address all those issues because a lot of times there's more.
I'm well aware what a caseworker can address and what Gail is not a caseworker. I get that.
Okay, no.
Whatever.
I'll
I
give you
understand
another.
that.
I'll give you
But what
another
I'm saying
analogy.
is her opinion matters, and I like her opinion, and her availability to the subject is amazing, and it's nice to have
Okay,
someone else hearing you.
I'm,
But I
I'm
get
going
it
to
that
give
Gail's not a
you.
caseworker, and we need to ask caseworker these questions. We've been doing this show for a couple of years. We've always tried to get a caseworker in here,
Okay,
and
I'm going
just
to
haven't
give
been able
you
to.
another analogy to that. The other analogy is a guy does, I don't know, grand auto theft.
Mm-hmm.
He gets arrested for just grand auto theft, but they put him in jail for life. Holy smokes. What the heck? Why they put him in jail for life? Just because he stole a vehicle? Because he may have a record of things. And they already said all you need is one more strike and that's it. You're out of here.
All right. Well, let me give you another analogy. You've never been in trouble in your whole life. Never had CPS call when you raised a daughter for 23 years on your own with no mother, everything. Never got a call, but you get in trouble. CPS comes, they take your kid.
Good. Now, that's not good they took your kid, but good analogy. The good analogy that you gave me is that why would the CPS come to your house and take the kid unless there was some kind of imminent danger?
And you know just as well as I do that there was none.
That's where when you talk to the caseworker, you explain that to them and say, well, how would you rule on that?
Right. If we had a caseworker here. But what I'm saying is these things happen. You know,
Yeah.
Benny,
But the
Benny
thing
has been
is,
accused of atrocious crime. He's
yes,
put on the penalty box before he's even been able to go out and be able to speak on his behalf and be able to set the record straight. He's already
yeah,
destroyed, just like I was. The media has destroyed us as parents and as people and as anything in these areas because they can't take that stuff back. They put you out
right,
in the media like that. They can't take it back because everybody's already made their decision about you. So
that's
that's
right.
it. You're ruined.
That's it. So we have to figure out, was that the decision by, it was not the caseworker. See, we keep going with the caseworker. What about the judge?
I agree. And the reason I agree is because I have actually spoken with parents. Now these are parents I spoke with that said that the um, social worker had actually written a letter in favor of the child going back to the parent, and it was the judge that made another call. And I don't know why the judge made that call, and they don't know why. They couldn't give me an answer. They
Well,
they they had a letter from the CPS or the caseworker saying that this person has. Carrie was mentioning earlier how these parents had went through all their trainings, their classes, etc., and yet they couldn't get the baby back. I don't know what the backstory is to that,
Mhm.
but I have heard of parents before saying that as well. Like the social worker said, no, it's in the child's best interest to go back home, and it was the judge that made a
Mhm.
different call.
Mhm.
that's right.
Yeah.
And nobody brings up the judge. All we do is beat up the caseworkers. We
In
got to
my
introduce
case,
the judge into this scenario. The judge has to be introduced in this equation. The
okay, but
judge.
I'm gonna argue that fact with you a little bit though, Herbert, because the judge is not always present in all of these cases. Because in my case alone, there has been no judge interaction with the CPS case. It's all been the Attorney General and CPS and the guardian ad litem.
Now
Judge,
I
And
was
I
under
can
the
prove it.
impression
I
that
have
that
all
a
that proof.
judge always had to
a
write.
judge had to be involved somewhere in the middle there. You didn't see the
There,
judge.
there has not been a 6-month review or a 4-month review for the Jeopardy hearing. There hasn't been none of that. And we're going on the 11th month.
Which means that you're only 3 or 4. They've already gotten you for abandonment because they've separated you from your kids for that long. So they win there. Now they've gotten you. They're almost 15 out of 22 months. So you're only 4 months away, 5 months away from getting that. So they TPR you, but they're already going to do it because you abandoned your child. This is all state sanctioned and state done, and you haven't even gone to trial yet to see if you're guilty or innocent. But you're already being put out to hung for your family.
Yep.
Makes no sense.
That's why I said you guys really don't understand how corrupt CPS is here.
It looks
Okay,
good from afar
that's
until you're into it.
okay.
Until you're into it and you see what goes on, until you're made out to be one of these people. Because it's easy
Yeah,
to sit afar and say this, that, or the other. But when you're made
yeah,
out to
yeah.
be,
But what I'm talking, I'll tell you where I'm coming from. I'm coming from. It has to do from state to state. In a case in New Mexico, I knew for sure that baby should have been taken. That it was never taken away.
But see, that's where I explained to you on the show one day that there was even a family here in Maine. Okay, both the parents was shooting up in a hotel room, and yet CPS let them keep their babies, but yet mine are taken without any proof of evidence. Come on.
Okay, so it's a very subjective decisions that are being made. So we got to figure out from the caseworkers, do they have the discretionary to do subjective decisions?
And from that standpoint, I'm wondering if there is a legal way, um, if caseworkers are not always, if they're not using sense in terms of their decision making with children, and you're feeling that they're taking them out and they're influencing the judges based, because the judge in the end has to make the decision. That's the one thing factual I know. Um, is there a way to make them accountable? And maybe in our legal system there is, and we're unaware of it.
Yeah, it's called a Form COL, 1983, USC. That's how you hold these judges accountable. You have them served before you even have a court hearing.
And what happens when you do that? Does it do they have to
It puts them on notice that if they try to screw you, you got a pre-existing lawsuit towards them.
got you.
all right, guys, we are way past.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Have
sorry.
a good night,
Yeah,
everyone.
I love having your time. Yes, this will be great for next week's conversation when you come back for Gale Friday.
And don't forget tomorrow at 6:30.
Yeah, that's right. We got Vinny's show tomorrow. And Gail, anytime you feel like you want to come back and you want to speak with us, feel free. Get in touch with Herbert or me or whatever.
Okay.
You got something that you want to talk about and bring up. You're more than welcome on this show whenever. But I know we got you for Fridays, and I'm happy about that. That all being said, you want to lead us with the last words tonight, Gail?
Oh. I guess I will lead with I hope this broken system can be fixed. I don't think that it can be totally revamped, but I do hope that it's fixed in a manner that supports the family and not breaks it apart, and at the same time protect our children in a way that they need to be protected. And also I hope that people can start getting together collectively, because there is power in numbers. And like I said, writing letters, becoming a support system when people are, parents in particular are struggling. And maybe they can, from a community standpoint, also help. Because I get the feeling, with the way society is, community is the key to this more than anything else. Yeah.
All right, those are good. That's good stuff right there. Herbert?
Herbert's going to say, avoid CPS.
Yes.
Okay. Learn, first of all, about CPS so you know what you're avoiding.
Yeah.
You may be doing things innocently, thinking that you're doing it to the interest of your child, and actually is detrimental to yourself and the child, because it's something that CPS sits on the list.
Yeah.
And you're doing abuse to your children by doing or not doing things. So you have to learn about what is CPS, what is it that they look for, and avoid being on their radar.
All right. Vinny?
Oh, well, tonight for you all, don't ever sign a CPS contract. Always have an attorney present, and do not let them in your household.
That's right. Hey, Vinny, what time's your show tomorrow?
6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All right,
Now,
everybody.
what time would your show start? Is it going to start at
Start
6:30 or
at
what time?
8:30 on the nose.
Okay.
All right, everybody. So that's it. Thank you guys for joining me today. I appreciate it. Have a good
So,
weekend, everybody.
Gail, will you be able to come on for 6:30 tomorrow?
That's Vinny's show. It's not mine. That's the Vinny's program,
I'm
man. You
asking
talk to Vinny
Gail.
about it.
Gail.
Oh, Gail.
Gail.
Yes,
Tomorrow,
right here.
yeah,
Gail's right there.
I can't make it tomorrow. I have a fundraiser I'm going to, but the
Okay.
following week I should be able to.
All right.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. All right, guys. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Vinny. See you tomorrow, buddy. All right, everybody. That was a great show. Gail, I really appreciate Gail being on here and her wisdom and her insight. It really helps out a lot. So listen to everything that we said tonight, guys. This stuff's real. Please keep CPS out of your house. Keep your family safe. Keep your kids safe. I'm the CPS Punisher, and I'm out of here.
They take away the fathers, leaving just a mom and cubs. They know that with that out the way, the better things will go. Breaking apart the family, destroying the American way. Our legacy is built upon our families of yesterday. Fuck CPS, fuck what they doing. Fuck CPS, they need to be ruined. It's all about the division of family services. You hear that the division is what they about. They prey upon the family, the ones that the dad's been kicked out. We can't stand for this abomination. This is the song that needs to play across our once great nation, making us aware of the problem. Stealing our kids, it's not mama drama. Stand up for those who are lost to them. We need to fight for the family, making America great again. CPS comes along with the mission to protect. The only thing they are doing is cashing in those checks, paid for by the souls of the children, diagnosed by a caseworker who is still a baby herself. They take away the fathers, leaving just the mom and cubs. They know that with that out the way, the better things will go. Breaking apart the family, destroying the American way. Our legacy is built upon our families of yesterday. Fuck CPS, fuck what they doing. Fuck CPS, they need to be ruined. It's all about the division of family services. You hear that the division, that's what they about. They prey upon the family, the ones that the dad's been kicked out. We can't stand for this abomination. This is the song that needs to play across our once great nation, making us aware of the problem. Stealing our kids, it's not mama drama. Stand up for those who are lost to them. We need to fight for the family, making America great again.